Welcome to Wheels, Deals, and Meals, where we talk all things good food, good business, and good cars. And now, here is your host, Arnold Gasita, founder and CEO of Petra Automotive Products. Let's roll.
Well, we have an exciting show for you today. We are going to be interviewing my personal doctor, so that alone should be very interesting. Dr. Andrew Spafford, thank you for being with us.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you.
It's good to have you on because I have a question. Why is it that every time I come see you, the solution is lose weight?
We live in Texas. There's Mexican restaurants and there's barbecue. So yeah, it's true for everybody, honestly, me included.
It's lose weight. If you lose weight, all the problems go away.
Hey, I read a study today. That was one of the top 5 things. Weight loss makes a huge difference.
Really?
It does.
Yeah.
It does.
So scientifically, not just having fun here.
Correct. Exactly. It's a little bit of both.
So I don't think I've ever asked this question in my podcast, but I'm going to ask it. What's your favorite sport?
Oh, baseball by far.
Yeah. I figured that's why I asked it because I'm looking at your wall
here. Stuff. I had an uncle who played professional baseball for the Cardinals back in the 40s, so it's in my blood. So I love baseball.
So do you go to many games?
I used to. It's hard because we live this side of town, and I have 4 kids doing 4 different things, so I have no free time.
So you happy with the Astros right now?
Right now, they're playing pretty good. I mean, I'm surprised after digging themselves such a huge hole to start the season. So they're doing a lot better.
Why do you think they dug themselves a hole? Do you think it was coaching?
I think that all the different playoff seasons they've had have just torn them up. It tears up pitching just because of the extra games that they have to play. So then when they start the season, they just haven't rested enough, and it's just a lot to catch up.
I love the Astros. I love whether they win or not. I'm in. Same thing for Texas. I think our fans are actually pretty loyal. But I will tell you that I think, and I'm not saying this in a bad way. I just think it's inexperience and like when any business you hire somebody new, I think the manager was new and fresh and had to get his rhythm. I
think Espada's done great. I think he's done a great job.
Even from the beginning?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, that's just my opinion. I just think at the beginning they're just trying to get back into a rhythm. And because I haven't done the math, how many extra games they played compared to others being in, basically because they make the American League Championship Series for like 5 years in a row, 6 years in a row. That's a lot of extra baseball.
I read in the newspaper the other day that if the playoffs ended today, they would be in the playoffs. I mean, if the playoffs started today, they would be in.
Yeah, they're 4.5 games up on the Mariners right now. So yeah, they're first place in the division. So yeah, they'd be easy.
All right, what's your favorite car?
Well, I'm not a huge car guy, but my first car was great. It was a 1969 F100 Ford pickup, and it was a total disaster. I paid $1,100 for it. It was lime green, and it had metal doors on the inside that were green. And I worked at Randall's as a sacker when I was in high school, so that's how I made money to buy the truck.
So for those watching, Randall's would be like a Kroger's or H-E-B.
Yeah, there's one store left out here that still exists, but yeah, I'd work there on the weekends and made tips, and that's how I bought it. And
so in your entire career, your favorite vehicle was the first one you had?
Yeah, because it was... I mean,
there's nothing that you would think I would want in the Andrew Museum?
The thing is, though, when I drove that, people knew it was me. There was no doubt who was driving that truck. I mean, it was a mess. I mean, you couldn't really take anybody in it that was female because it smelled like gasoline the whole time you were in there because the gas tank was behind the cab, in the cab, essentially. It had no air conditioning. It had nothing power, no power steering, no power nothing. The horn was on the side of the door because it was not working to the actual horn on the steering column. So I had to reach over the side door to honk the horn at somebody. So, and it had somebody mounted a fan underneath the dashboard.
So it was slightly rigged.
It was very rigged. It had a big 101 KOL sticker on the back.
Yeah,
so as a Houstonian, that was a kid in high school. I was like, okay, that's really cool. I got to buy this truck.
Were you born in Houston?
I was born in Houston, born and raised here.
Born and raised in Houston.
Yes.
Never left Houston.
Well, I left Houston for college and residency and medical school. But
this was your home.
Yeah, grew up in Walnut Bend subdivision. It's in West Houston off of Westheimer. My grandparents lived next door to me. So that's the other reason the truck too. I'd start up in the morning and I'd wake up my grandpa every morning going to school with that loud old beast that it was.
Okay, so you grew up there. Where did you go to high school?
I went to Houston Lee, which is now called Wisdom High School. They actually tore it down and rebuilt it. But it's over there across the street from the original Papacitos.
So when you graduated from high school, did you know you wanted to be a doctor or that came later?
That came later. I had an idea that, I've always was a science nerd as a kid. I had this little thing I drew in elementary school where I said I wanted to be a scientist someday. And it's just sort of worked itself out. When I went to Baylor, I wasn't sure if I wanted to be a doctor or a lawyer. The lawyer part didn't work, so I became a physician, and that it just sort of took off from there.
Wait a minute, the lawyer part didn't work, so this was the backup
Well,
plan?
English was not my best thing to study. More science stuff was better. So, but it happened pretty fast. During my freshman year.
So all through high school, you were a science guy. Mm-hmm. And so you go to Baylor to major in what in the beginning?
I was a psych major, so that's what my degree's in actually. And then you had to do all the pre-med stuff, which is basically almost like another degree itself. So I had a BS in psych is what I ended up with.
Okay, and what period did you go? You know what? I'm gonna move this to focus on being a doctor.
So I graduated high school in 1988. Went to college and at Baylor. I graduated there from '92, and then I went to medical school in San Antonio after that. Yeah. So that's sort of the steps that I took to get there.
Yeah, but where did you decide you wanted to be a doctor? So you're a
probably
freshman in college.
It's probably my second year in college. My uncle, favorite uncle of family, he died of HIV, he died of AIDS. So I was interested in learning more about healthcare and medicine because of what he experienced. And so that sort of set the progress, the things forward for me to learn more about healthcare and decided that's something I wanted to do.
Well, so that's where I was going to, because usually when I've talked to other doctors, somewhere down the line, something happened.
The biggest inspiration was my teacher at Lee High School. Her name was Doris Countay. Everybody in my high school knew exactly who she was. She had an oceanography class that she taught. But she took us all down to the med center to watch DeBakey operate. So we went down to the med center, and they had this theater where you could stand up on top over the operating room. It had windows, and you could watch the operation. And that was sort of a test, because then if you weren't puking or passing out, then maybe you're going to be a physician, because there were kids everywhere just passing out. They couldn't watch them open up the chest, do the heart surgery.
So you as a high school student got to see DeBakey
and his team autographed. So do surgery. Yeah, exactly. And there's multiple.
This is the guy that invented the open heart surgery, right?
Yeah. So I have multiple friends in my high school class that are physicians. So there's probably, I don't know, at least 10 to 15 of us in my class that all end up being doctors. And I think that was part of it, because she passed away a couple of years ago, and people were posting all these things about what she did for them and how she just changed the way they thought about their life and their career. She was that kind of person. She was very inspirational. So
that's amazing. That's an amazing story. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's not a light story.
You
that's
Google
like
her
almost
name, you'll
the
find
father
something.
of medicine to a certain point.
Yeah, so that sort of started. It put the idea in my head, and I think for a lot of my friends as well, to consider medicine. So,
did you like it?
I like medicine. I like what I do now a whole lot more than what I did for a season of life. But medical school was hard, but it was good. Living in San Antonio was great. I mean, our medical school is in north side of San Antonio, so there's lots of things to do.
Right. But, I think I know where you're going there, but let me back you up a little bit.
Yeah.
So, good grades in high school?
Yeah, I was a nerd. I was fifth in my class.
No problems?
No,
Come
not
on,
really.
man. Give me some juicy stuff. You did something crazy.
I was a firstborn.
I know your wife is going to
nerdy,
see this, but
Episcopalian kid growing up who didn't do any of that stuff. I didn't do drugs or drink any of that. It just wasn't me. I was a wallflower. I wouldn't say much of anything. Very shy. So I didn't get into a whole lot of trouble.
All right. So you're good through high school. Mm-hmm. Then you go to Baylor.
Correct. Yes.
And you're in Baylor for 4 years.
Correct. Yes.
Nothing crazy there?
No, I lived in the dorm. We had a dorm on Penland. We were on what's called the 4th floor of the zoo, and we did a bunch of stupid things, but it was college stuff. So
college kid stuff.
I mean, I was a goody two shoes essentially. So
and all good grades there through that.
I did good in college. Yeah, I did fine.
If you could pick one thing during your Baylor time, your 4 years at Baylor, that you go, man, this was really an impactful moment in my life, what would it be?
So I was in a group called Baylor Men's Club, and there was 4 guys that I was really close to, and we ended up being roommates pretty much through the whole time we were there in college. One of them is a pastor. He's up in Dallas, and he does radio play-by-play for high school football. So he loves doing that kind of stuff. Another guy was a missionary in Africa, and the other is a teacher in the school system. But those 4 guys have been friends of mine forever. I don't talk to them a lot anymore, but they're the type of people you just call them and pick up right away with them. And so that was pretty formidable.
So the relationship was the most impactful.
And then the past, my friend David, his dad, Mr. Griffin, Don Griffin, he would come to college. He'd come visit us, and he'd always take us out to eat. So when you're in college, you're tired of eating dorm food or cooking for yourself, and Mr. Griffin shows up. Hey, he's going to go take us to a nice place. That was always pretty cool. And he was a strong Christian, and he taught me a lot. He worked for he worked for, I can't remember what company he worked for in Dallas, but he lived in Grapevine, had a huge house, but everything else was humble. He had an old Oldsmobile Cutlass Supreme he drove and didn't spend a whole lot of money, but he was just a prime example of what it means to be a guy of integrity. And so that's something I remember really well from college. It just helped me in my formative years as a Christian, and then also what I was going to do, how I was going to treat people.
Were you a Christian when you were in high school?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you were a Christian along the way.
Yeah, I went to Holy Spirit. Initially, it was a church that's still in existence here in Houston. Then I went to Ascension, and that's where I met Ascension Episcopal. And I had a great root youth group leader who I still am in contact on Facebook. And then the pastor's son and I were roommates as well. So that was the formative years I had. I think my wife's family was strong Christians, and I think that she says her mom prayed for her husband for years, for my wife's husband. And so I feel like, okay, Betty Miller's prayers were answered in some ways. I know it's a weird perspective, but that's how I see it completely. Because I didn't get
Did your wife go to the same church or university?
No.
Or where did you meet your wife?
I didn't meet my wife until at both of our best friends' wedding.
After you had already had a
I'd
career.
already graduated from medical school and residency. I was in practice. So this was back when I was 31 or 32 that I met her. So,
okay.
And then and I stalked her. And it wasn't until 5 years later that we got married. But that's a whole nother long story.
But you actually did it the right way that, all the parents tell the kids, right? Finish your schooling, get your job, then get married, And
Well, to be married and have a job in residency or in medical school was really difficult. Very difficult, because I can look at my class and see people who, got divorced or their relationship didn't survive because medicine is all encompassing the way it was used to be done. Because, the term residency meant you lived there. So like in the ICU or debating there, were trained, the residents they basically lived in the ICU for 30 days. And that's why they were called residents, because they took up residency in the hospital. So you had no free time. You had no life. So that's what your life was totally around that. So to have a relationship of any kind was with your patients or coworkers.
We've talked about this. There's only 24 hours in a day, so something's got to give.
Exactly.
Something's got to give.
Yeah, you have to choose who you're going to cheat. So who's it going to be?
Right.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
Do you okay? So you go to Baylor, and then you go where for your graduate studies?
It was University Health Science Center in San Antonio. So it's just like the UT Medical School here. There's one in San Antonio as well. That's where I went to.
And it's under UT?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay.
I do not affiliate myself with UT at all. At all.
I get it.
There are Longhorns and Aggies in my family. I'm a Baylor guy.
You're a Bear. You're
correct. Yes.
So you go there. You graduate from medical school there, and then you study general practice.
In medical school, then you figure out, okay, what are you going to do next? Surgery, internal medicine, pediatrics, OB. I always liked a little bit of everything. I thought I was going to be a pediatrician, but I liked internal medicine, so I ended up doing family medicine. So it's both.
Okay.
So then during your third year of medical school, at the end of the year, you start interviewing places where you want to go. Then they have a match. So there's always a match day. It's in March every year where every medical student gets together and you open up an envelope. Where did I get accepted to? So it's this big thing.
Anywhere in the U.S.?
Yeah, well, wherever you applied to and you went to interview that. So you try to interview as many places and you create a list and you rank them. They rank you, and then the computer does this thing, and then you get a letter saying,
congratulations, where are you going?
Yeah, so I got a letter saying I was going to Congo.
It's like a little draft. All right, well, that's not too bad.
No,
kind of still
great.
Kind of still stayed home.
Yeah.
So you do residency, so internal medicine and family practice.
Well, it's just family practice. Just family
practice.
Yes.
So you do the residency there.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And then how long is that?
It's 3 years.
3 years.
Yes.
At a hospital.
Yeah, we worked at the hospital in Montgomery County. We took care of the indigent patients of Montgomery County. So that was our job. Wow. So I saw all sorts of crazy things.
What's the craziest thing you saw?
The snake bites. That was the funnest. Well, not the funnest, but that was one of the craziest patients I ever took care of. So he found a timber rattler and was trying to kill it, and the rattler bit him twice. And he got very, really sick. He went into something called DIC, and he had rhabdomyolysis. He got very ill and almost died, but he survived. But he was just a good old country boy. But
so it's true, all these venomous snakes, they attack the nerve system, right?
And the venom attacks your nervous system. It also can cause the problem where your muscles will sort of rupture and proteins will be released into your bloodstream, make you very, very sick, very ill. And you have to keep giving them dose after dose of antivenom to stop that process.
So is it true that you got to take the snake to the hospital so that the doctor knows?
Kind of, but
or is there a general antivenom amount?
This is Conroe, Texas. They know what timber rattlers look like and copperheads.
You mean
water
they know what the
moccasins.
bites look like?
The person would know who was with them, so it wasn't usually too hard to identify.
Okay.
So I never had someone actually bring the snake to the hospital for me to see. But
What was it? You like show pictures?
yeah, show pictures. But this is pre-cell phone.
Yeah.
So someone had to get out their Polaroid camera or something to be able to see what it is. But yeah, usually it wasn't hard. It wasn't hard to figure that out.
Yeah. And if you get there in time and the anti-venom is pretty quick, it's pretty good.
Yeah. He just got really, really sick.
So what are our snakes here? We have the
Well, there's copperheads, there's water moccasins, there's rattlesnakes, and then there's coral snakes as well.
bed. The crow isn't venomous.
No, well, it is, but you have to let it do it. I mean, you have to sit there with your foot, and you just have to sit there and gnaw on you. So it's not. It's a different kind of snake. It has to. It takes a while for it to envenomate you.
Which one's worse?
To me, rattlesnakes is the worst for sure, because they're a little bit more aggressive and they're more likely to bite you, and you're going to encounter more of them, I think. But
Yeah.
this is not my area of expertise. But
No, I know. I mean, we got off in a whole different, but it was interesting.
Well, and
'cause-
plus our
what's interesting is because I have another friend that's a doctor, and we interviewed him a while back, and he said the same thing about venomous snakes. It must be more than I thought. Like, I don't know anybody that's ever gotten bitten by a snake.
if you're in the city, you don't see that. But if you go out to the country at all, where there's a lot of trees, you're going to see them. Especially if you're hiking or fishing or messing around, you're going to run into them. But into the Boy Scout camp was right there for a while, Camp Strake, and so every year there'd be some Boy Scout kid or somebody who got snake bitten. It was right by the hospital, so it was literally right around the corner. So you'd see those patients.
Yes, you get that trauma. In your time of working as a resident in the hospital, tell me a great story. Like, obviously the guy survived. That's a great story, but that's also traumatic. What's the story that you walked away and said, "Man, I'm so glad I'm a doctor."
I think we had a trailer, we had an RV that we drove around the county to go help poor people. So it was great. I mean, it was weird because you'd pile yourself into an RV and you drive to Cut and Shoot, and there was a VFW hall there, and they would all line up to come see us. So it was veterans, it was family members, and they just had trouble getting access to care. And it was great to go meet with them and talk with them and spend time with them and work with them, because we were meeting them in their neighborhood, in their community. Tamina, which is on the other side of the Woodlands, it's a traditional, it's African American community that's been there for many, many, many years, and we go there and serve as well. So I loved having that serving opportunity. And then we go to Magnolia before Magnolia was what it is today, because this is in the mid '90s, late '90s.
So you enjoyed it because it was almost like a missionary.
Yeah, it was. It was kind of fun just because then you're not in a clinic and you're trying to see patients in their environment and help them to make changes and figure out what's best for their health. And it puts you more on an even playing field, because then when they have to come to you, it's a little bit more stressful. When you're on their turf, they're a little bit more relaxed. So I really enjoyed that because I did that a lot during my third year in training.
There's that ship, right, that has doctors that goes and travels around.
Yeah,
You ever
like the
think about
Mercy
doing something like that?
No, it wasn't
Big
for me.
commitment, yeah.
YWAM, I don't know if you're heard of YWAM. They have a ship that goes around the
should be.
country, around the world. I did a mission trip with YWAM to the Virgin Islands back when I was in high school. So that was always the back of my mind, do something like that. But it just never was a passion for me to do that. It just wasn't what I was
what
wired
you're doing to do
No.
for
Like
sure.
I say, I've done it before. But yeah, it is a great thing, but it's just not what I felt like I was supposed to do.
So you do your residency, you get out. What's next?
And then it was trying to figure out what to do. So I was actually going to Faithbridge at the time, and the pastor there and I have been good friends for a long time. And a good friend of mine who I just saw this weekend, the guy who my wife and I met at their wedding, his name was Randy, and he was involved with that church as well. And so I started feeling a calling to come more towards this area. And then so there was a hospital, Cypress Hospital. The guy was named Joe Freudenberger. He was the CFO. He recruited me to come work through Cypress Hospital. So my office was down in 1960 originally, but I was driven to come to this area because of that church. And it was a church plant at the time. We were meeting in Ken's house for a little bit. Then we ended up going to Kids Are Kids, and then we went to Strog Middle School, and then I finally got our property. But because of those relationships, that's what brought me down to this part of town.
So were you in private practice?
Yeah, they helped me start up a practice. I was on my own by myself.
Okay.
Had no clue what I was doing. Never had done any of the business stuff before. I had to figure out how to make payroll, how to pay all my taxes. And I had another friend of mine. We were in the residency together. He started a practice in the Cypher area, and we'd call each other and go, okay, I figured how to do your payroll taxes. You got to go do this. And that's when you had to actually fill out the forms at 971 972 forms. How I figured that out, I have no idea. And just go pay it ourselves. So we were very much green and had no idea.
Was that already at the height of insurance?
Yeah, well, this is 1999. So it was kind of the height of HMO stuff.
Yeah.
But
because that adds another element of paperwork and documentation and filings.
I had a billing service help me, and I learned a lot. I made a ton of mistakes. Almost lost our business. We had a billing person who didn't do the job, and she wasn't sending in any claims, and so we almost didn't have enough money. I had to borrow money from my parents for a little bit.
And I hear this from a lot of doctors where they love being a doctor, right? They're not necessarily the accountant business guy.
I didn't take any classes for any of that. I didn't know what I was doing.
Right. They just want to help people, and then they're dealt with all this stuff. And I've heard that there's a lot of doctors that are like grouping together and making whatever offices and hiring these accountants and business people, and they kind of share in it because one guy can't do it.
Yeah, exactly. So then over time, I had someone who was a friend of mine who came and told me that God told her she was going to be my office manager, and she had a book she was learning to read. I had all these crazy stories of people coming to work with us to do what we were going to do. It was called Capstone Family Practice at that time, and it grew to be a multi-physician office. We had a 4,000 square foot office.
So you went from private to there?
Well, that was the same business. It just got bigger.
The business that you started with one person,
just me, and then I hired one employee initially. She only worked for me for a month.
Grew
because I only saw 2 people the first week in my practice, and she's like, I don't think this guy's gonna make it, so she left. and then it just kept growing, and people kept adding people, and then I found another doctor to come work with me, and that's another long story. And then as it grew, then added another doctor, and then added 2 nurse practitioners. And then by the time I ended up doing what I'm doing now, I had like 3,000 patients. My associate had just as many. And
this started with you?
Yes. I had 2 patients the first week I started in practice.
No kidding. Yeah, that's a great success story through it all.
Yeah, the hospital supported me initially, and then based on how much revenue we brought in, I'd have to pay money back to them. I had to pay a lot of money back to them. And that's another bone of contention, but this way it goes sometimes. But yeah, started from scratch, from nothing. Literally hung my shingle, and the hospital supported me financially for a short time.
So did you sell your portion of that, or how did that work when you got out of that?
Well, it was just a contractual, they called it a relocation agreement. So they don't do those anymore, but basically they would pay for you to relocate to another area, and you'd be affiliated with the hospital. So I had hospital privileges. I had worked at Methodist. I worked at Cypress Hospital. I worked at Kindred. And I wasn't married. I had no kids then, so I could do that. So I was working 3 different hospitals and also seeing patients in office, which was a ridiculous schedule. I was working till 10 or 11 o'clock some nights because it was so much work. But I was willing to do that to build the business. Yeah. And so it took a lot of work. And there was a couple of days where I remember at some friends at church, I go, I don't know if this is going to work. And they're like, no, it's going to work. I was like, are you sure? Yeah. I was like, okay. So it just kept plugging along. And it just slowly kept growing. And then it just eventually, probably around 2007 or 8 is when it started blowing up and just really grew.
So what made you go from that to say, you know what, I'm going to open up a concierge?
My wife.
I wasn't expecting that answer, but that makes perfect sense.
No, she was like, I know you're always working. I never see you. We have little kids. Because we were old. I got married when I was 36. She was 34. So every 24 to 18 months, a kid appeared. So it was just like boom, 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 boom. And so then my free time just went.
You took that Bible verse about multiplying very
essentially. Well, my wife is one of 7, and then there are 33 grandkids on her side of the family from my father-in-law.
Lord,
I know. Christmas is loud. It's very loud. It's 50 people. If everybody comes, it's 50 people. But anyway, she basically said, I think you need to do this. And I resisted her for probably 3 years, maybe 4. If she was here, she'd say 5. And then finally, I was like, okay, fine, I'll do it. And it was one of the most difficult things I've ever done.
I was going to say, that's got to be a hard decision.
It was really hard because I had a really large patient population. The way MDVIP works is that, people pay to join the practice. And so not everybody's going to join. That's the philosophy. You don't want everybody to join it or you're just as busy.
Yeah, it takes away the exclusivity.
You spend 4 months telling every patient you see what you're going to do. And a lot of these patients, I may have had relationships for a long time. And then there's a person they kept in office that you would say, if they're interested, they go talk to her. And she sort of finished the job or the sale, essentially. So it's a lot of work. And I lost 2 teeth, some of the stress. I cracked 2 teeth because of it, because it was a lot of tension and difficulty with working through with relationships and things. But it's what I was supposed to do, 100%.
Do you like this better than the mass amount of people that you saw over here?
Yeah. Let's see. I've got 30 minutes to talk to you as opposed to 10 minutes. And there's 4 people waiting for me to see them. And there's this pressure to keep going as opposed to I could sit and talk with you for 30 minutes and talk about all the stuff and let it develop naturally. Because sometimes the way people talk, they don't come out and tell you right away what's wrong. You have to pull it out of them. Mm-hmm. And most of the time you go, okay, it took me 20 minutes to get out of you. Why did it take so long? You could have said this right away and made this so much easier. But that's just the way people are. And so and then you develop relationships. So just like we develop relationships. So it helps solidify things. And then as a result of that, people trust you. And they say statistically with MDVIP, it takes 7 years for a patient to consider you their doctor. So I've been in practice. This is my 25th year now. So I flipped 6 years ago. So it was 19 years in practice that those patients all finally go, okay, we want to do this with you. And many of them like it's the best thing ever. Because a lot of people will say, you've given us the gift of time to be able to spend time with people.
Yeah. The great thing about you and your concierge service is that exactly what you said, you spend time with people. Mm-hmm. There is no rush.
Correct.
So you're talking to people, making sure, I know you say 20 minutes to try to get them to tell you the truth, but also 20 minutes for them to understand what you're telling them.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
You know?
Everybody's different. Some people are, auditory learners or
like I still don't hear the part
learners.
about not eating and exercise.
We're going to keep working on that. One day we're going to have
I like how you, on my paperwork,
wall.
how you put exercise and circle it.
If it works, sounds like it did. That's just the application side. That's the hard part.
And I love the way that when you give new patients, you do that whole physical thing, right? That no doctor does. Because usually go to the doctor when there's a problem.
Right.
And so it's reactive versus proactive.
There's so much things that prevention can help. Like even now they say dementia is a preventable disease. So there's things that, and it's the same conversation we always have.
Exercise.
Diet, exercise. Yes.
It doesn't matter what we come in here for.
Processed foods, and being able to hear well. And
when you say non-processed food, what does that mean?
Well,
like, are we talking no McDonald's?
Did a Cisco truck back in the parking lot and put all the...
Everybody has a Cisco truck back in the parking lot. I know.
That's why it's hard to do, because you have to eat things fresh. You have to eat things that haven't been changed from what they were initially.
I travel, as you know, all the time. 2 to 3 weeks a month, I'm gone. The only thing... I thought about this when I left here the other day. I would have to be in the airport, because the airport would have, whatever, Chili's on the go, McDonald's, maybe pizza... they'll have a couple of restaurants, but they're probably processed foods as well. I thought the only thing I could probably grab is a banana.
Well, yeah, you think fruits and vegetables for sure. You just think how they came out of the ground as best as you can. So it's always good to do, a salad with some chicken, turkey, or fish is the ideal thing when you're on the road. And then, of course, drink more water.
But if I went to one of these salad places, I won't mention the name, but if I go the salad places, right? Yeah. Lettuce, tomatoes, garbanzo beans, some meat. Is that non-processed in your mind?
In general, it's the least processed. I mean, think about it.
What are you going to do for lettuce, right?
The periphery of the grocery store is the non-processed sections. So that's the produce section, that's the fruits and vegetables, that's sort of the dairy products, things like that.
But meat in its raw form like that would be non-processed.
Yeah, the Mediterranean diet says you only do beef maybe once a week, but the rest of it's chicken, turkey, and fish. But yeah, you think about it, okay, if you're getting pepperoni or salami or things like that, are those processed? Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, if you're eating sausage, is that processed? Of course.
Of course. Yeah.
So there was a process.
Yeah, anything that's frozen in a bag, in a can.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. But,
Is Spam? How's Spam?
No, it's disgusting. But I'm not Hawaiian, so...
Yeah, you eat that at McDonald's in Hawaii, just so you know.
I'm going to Hawaii then. No, but it is hard. It is very difficult to eat unprocessed food. You have to think it through.
Now, you told me about a study where you mentioned Greeks. I wanted to mention it. A big, major study that was made that the Mediterranean diet.
Yeah, it was a study of like 12 million people.
Is the best diet.
In general.
Which really isn't a diet. It's a lifestyle change.
I just read some stuff today that it does help, but of course you have to move too. You got to exercise. I'm saying it again. And I'm just as guilty too. I got to do more of it as well. I have Dr. Pepper is my problem.
You literally just told me to exercise.
I love Whataburger is my problem too. I have 4 children. Dad, can we go to Whataburger? Okay, fine. Yeah. I don't feel like cooking.
There's a Cisco trick there.
It's true. But it's then learning because you think about it, part of the skill of just being a person is that what can you make? So if people just show up at your house, what do you know how to cook that you can cook for people? I feel like that's a sort of an essential skill of life. Okay, I can make chicken marsala. I love chicken marsala. I can do that. I can do breakfast for dinner. I can do a pasta dish that's pretty healthy. The unhealthy stuff, my kids love a gratin potatoes, so I'll make that. It's one of my wife's favorite things. So you start to think, okay, what can I learn to make that I like to make on my own so I know what it looks like for that particular diet? It just takes some reading and knowledge, just like anything else.
I love the way, too, that here, at least with me, and I'm sure with all your other patients, you talk a lot about studies and statistics. This study came out statistically, blah, 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 blah.
Right. I'm an allopathic physician, so that's how we do our stuff, is you have to show us that it works. Because there's so many things that you think work, but it doesn't. It's counterintuitive a lot of times how things do work. And that's how we do our business. You have to play with practice they call evidence-based medicine. Now, that's important, but the art of medicine is really important too, because there's parts of things that I do that don't have anything to do with that. It's what kind of the instinct, what you see in the patient, what they tell you, and sometimes you don't always follow that path. Now, there may be a doctor watching this say, sorry I said that. But in general, the art of medicine is my favorite part, because that's more of the talking part and the relational part and helping people change the way they think about things. But the science stuff is very important because that's the foundation of why you do what you do. That's, if I take a board exam, that's what I get tested on. Mm-hmm. And if I don't know that information, buy a board certification. So that's part of what healthcare runs on, is those studies to show, okay, does this really work, to take out bias, and also to, the placebo effect, to see, okay, is that people feel like they're going to get better just because they took something? Because that does work. The placebo effect does work. It's great for kids.
Sugar pill.
Yeah.
That's great. All right, so you now open this new concierge type business, which I love it. Of course, I'm the patient. I'm thinking you love it too, because now you get to spend more time, as you said,
exactly. Yes.
with the people and do what you're called to do.
Exactly.
And love people on it more. Yeah. What's next?
Well, for me, it's my family. So I have 4 kids. I have a junior, freshman, 7th grader, and a 6th grader. So that's primarily where my work is at. Getting those 4 people to grow in their faith, to grow in their skills, and grow what they're called to be. So, and that takes so much of my time. So like this weekend, probably 9 hours of my time was with them. Boys with band, daughter doing cheer. I went to see Chicago, so that was somewhat fun this weekend. But that's probably my biggest responsibility right now, is then getting them to and through college. I serve at our church. I'm a deacon in our church, and I teach a lead a life group class. I just don't have time for much more. There's other things I'd love to do. I'm just in the season where I have kids. And
so you really are doing a work and life balance. Mm-hmm. You love what you do. Yeah. Love spending time with your patients. Now you have less patients. Give them more time in the concierge world,
right?
Which opens up more time for
my family. Yeah, because if I was doing the old model, I would miss maybe half of their things. And boys need their dad to be involved with their life for them to grow and have that sense of responsibility, that sense of care and love. I mean, I read study after study after study. The sons and dad's relationship needs to be strong for them to be men of integrity. And because I don't want the world doing that for my kids, I need to do that. That's my responsibility.
Right. Agreed.
And so it's, my time with them is short. Like I have a junior, so he's got a little over a year and a half left, and then he's out of here, off to college. And then now essentially a lot of ways I'm just a consultant with him. But I know that relationship's important. I know eventually I'm like, okay, it's over. So now we're empty nesters. What are we going to do now? But my daughter is in 6th grade. So I'll be 61 years old when she graduates from high school. So I got a ways to go. But that's my primary.
Well, that's good, because I know you're not going to retire, so I have a doctor.
No, I will work here until I can. My wife's like, no, you just keep working. That's fine. But because she works at our church too, she's really busy with that. So it's. Like I said, I wish I could go play golf. I used to play in a band. I like to play drums again. I just don't have time for it.
Because you've told me you play the guitar.
I play guitar just for fun. I'm not very good. Drums is what I played, because I've had a band in medical school that we played together, and it was fun.
What was your band called?
Out of Phase.
Out of Phase?
Mm-hmm. Because when we took our test, it was called Phase Week, so the only time we didn't play was when we were out of phase. It's terrible. It's terrible.
That's the best you guys could do.
Well, I had a roommate who had a singing band, and they were called 4 out of 5 Doctors. It was just 4 guys. Terrible.
That's actually funny. That's actually a funny one. Okay, so you were talking about your daughter.
My daughter, yes.
Any of them inclined to, do you see any of them saying, I want to be in the medical field?
Yeah, my oldest, May, We'll see. I mean, because
there's a lot from here to there, but
yeah, my oldest May, my third son loves football, so he don't even think about any of that. My second son's very artistic, so I don't know. I really don't know. Whatever God's called him to do is fine with me. I just don't know.
But none of them said, Dad, I want to be a doc.
My oldest said maybe he'd want to be a pediatrician. So we'll see if that works itself out.
Okay.
So we'll see. I don't know. It depends on how he applies himself and how hard he works, because it's a lot of work.
Sure. No, for sure.
It's a lot of work.
So you're a successful guy with a great family. Somebody that's watching this, that's getting out of high school, going into college, what's the best couple of pieces of advice that you can give them?
Treat it like a job. Work 8 to 5 with college. Don't goof off during the school day. I did a lot of goofing off. And if I just worked 8 to 5, I'd have all the free time I needed if I stayed on track with things. At least that's what.
Treat it like a job.
Yeah, because then you're practicing already in college. Because you think in high school you're told where to go. College you are to some extent, but you have a lot more freedom. And so I always tell kids that I see as patients that if you do that and just do things during the work hour, you'll have all the free time in the world to do all the fun stuff. There'll be times where you can't, you'll be too busy with taking finals and things like that. But if you do that, you'll have your day will be freed up more, for sure. And then the other is value your relationships, because college is such a shared experience. These are people that there are many times in your life where you have shared experiences with people, and that's why those relationships are strong. And don't lose those relationships. I regret letting some of those relationships sort of fizzle out over time just because of time and distance and family stuff. But I think that's really important, is those relationships, because that ultimately gets you to where you go, because the people you grow up with and go to school with is really kind of how you end up figuring out where you go to work. And
yeah, they know somebody.
Exactly. That's how it works. And so if you don't maintain those relationships, it makes those things harder.
Yeah, I believe that wholeheartedly. I mean, I like the 8 to 5. I never actually heard that. I've heard people work at it, outwork the other person, outpace the other person. But treat it like a job is right up there.
I think, too, you only can do what you can do. To try to compare yourself to other people, you're already setting yourself up for failure. You have to do what you know how to do. Be exactly how you've been made. And it may be different how they do it, but you're you. They're not you. And there's something unique specifically about you.
Yeah. Be you. Work 8 to 5, right? Yes. And then protect relationships.
Yeah. And then as a Christian, you do what God tells you to do.
Yeah.
I can say that boldly, that I felt God show me where I need to go, what I need to do, and why. And some of it I couldn't determine, like going to what medical school I go to. I was like, well, I'd like to go there. But it was a place I wanted to get to, and eventually he got me there. But trust God with your circumstances.
Trust and obey.
Exactly.
Trust and obey.
Yes.
Brother, thank you for doing this with me.
Hey, I appreciate it. It was fun.
Yeah,
I appreciate your time as well.
It was a blast. I think we're going to bring Sissy and Patricia in real quick. I want to give them a shout out. These are the right and left hand of Doc here at the office, the ones that I call. And
Hey.
Hola, Cecilia.
Where's Patricia?
These are the bosses of the practice.
So this is
they just tell me what to do.
This is Sissy, Patricia. These are the ones that keep me in line and keep the doc in line more than anybody else. So
true.
We all have them in our businesses. So
usually one of us has a matching scrub the same day. So today it's me and Patricia.
See, it's the secret emails that they get.
That's great. That's good. How do you guys like working here?
Oh,
This is your opportunity to say everything.
We love it. Great.
we love it.
Yeah.
We started with him, so it feels very comfortable, like a unit.
Well, I'll tell you what. To me, it's felt very good, comfortable.
Good. Well, thank
You guys are like, you treat people like family. and
Exactly. That's it.
yeah.
That's totally
Yeah,
it.
you treat people like family.
Yes.
So it's good. You yell at us when you need to yell at us.
Yes.
Talk to us when you need to talk to us. Tell us
Careful
not.
what you
Tell us.
say.
Tell
Take
us not to.
cuidado.
Tell us not to eat and exercise. We got to
don't
get
have-
that one down.
we
We got
don't
to say
have
that
a-
like a million times.
We don't have cameras in your house, so going that far.
Well, but the evidence is when I come back and you weigh me and check my blood work and
Feels back there.
and everything else. So anyway, well, appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for letting us be here. It's going to be fun. You're going to love this episode.
I hope.
Thank you for listening to Wheels, Deals, and Meals, your main source for all things good and fun, business, food, and cars. If you like this episode, make sure to rate us and subscribe. If you would like to be a guest on our show, please leave a message at the link below. Till next time, happy eating.